What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and today we'll be doing a full in-depth review on the newest Dirt Devil to be released. This is the Dirt Devil Multi-Surface Total Pet, and while the name itself is nothing new, the vacuum itself sure is. This is the newest Dirt Devil in the lineup as of June 2023, and it looks very, very promising. At least it did whenever I first initially bought it, and after using it for the last 2 weeks, I think it's important to know what my final conclusion is and if this machine is worth your $100. Let's find out in this full review. So anyways, right off the bat I mentioned $100, and that's important because you can, as of right now at least, you can buy this machine at usually two price points. You can buy it at Walmart for $100, that's $99, or you can buy it on Dirt Devil's website for $129. And that is obviously $30 more expensive than the Walmart price. So right off the bat, if you're going to buy this machine, it's identical in both places. Get it from Walmart, it's cheaper. So why spend $30 when you don't have to, especially since that's a third the cost of the machine when you buy it at the $100 price point. So save yourself that extra cashola and, I don't know, buy some toothpaste or something. Anyways, this machine, like I mentioned, is $100, but is it worth $100? Well, right off the bat, I can say for sure this is the best Dirt Devil that has ever come out in recent years. At least in the last decade, this is the best Dirt Devil that has ever come out, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, it cleans better than any previous Dirt Devil that's been released in the last decade. That includes every Dirt Devil Power Max, every Dirt Devil Enduramax, even the flagship Dirt Devil Razor. This machine cleans better than those machines. Two, the motor in this machine is built better than the motors in a lot of those other machines. A lot of the Dirt Devils that you buy nowadays have really low quality motors in them. Even though the motors are the same between all these units, they're built a little bit more poorly on some of the other machines, including the Razor. So as a result, the longevity of the machine will likely take a hit. That was the main reason why I returned the Dirt Devil Razor. This particular machine, though, the motor feels like it's a lot better. It's still not amazing. I still feel like the equivalent Bissell has the edge in terms of motor longevity, but it's still pretty decent. Now, one other aspect of this machine that's improved is not just the cleaning performance, but also, while I touched on the motor's longevity, the overall build quality is much better as well. Not just internally with the motor, but also the plastic is built much better. This machine is significantly sturdier, it's made out of significantly thicker plastic, and the plastic is far more rigid. This machine has much less flex to it, and the little bit of flex that it does have clearly feels properly reinforced. So the build quality on this is excellent for the price, and it's one of the best built $100 vacuums that I've seen in quite a long time. Also, it also has the advantage of being very lightweight, despite the fact that it feels pretty sturdy. It's only 14.5 pounds, and when I measured that for the record, that was with the cord on and with some dirt in the bin, which is likely the most common scenario where you'll be picking up and carrying the machine. And of course, if you have the bin full of dirt, it'd be closer to 15 pounds. And if it's completely empty and the cord's not on it, then it might be closer to 14 pounds. Either way, you're looking at a machine that's a couple pounds heavier than the equivalent Bissell, but the build quality does take a pretty significant upgrade. So for you, that may be a welcome trade. One other aspect of this machine that is significantly improved, that's much in line with the older Dirt Devils like the Dirt Devil F1 Breeze, is the air path is much more simplified. Now, I'll explain and exactly demonstrate what I mean. So right here is a changeover valve. What this is a little valve that springs up into this position. And this, whenever you press this button right here to remove the hose, this valve springs back up, and that diverts the suction to the hose. Then when you push it back in, and you push it all the way until it clicks, now you've pushed this valve down to go to the floor, which means that now, whenever you're vacuuming carpets, the airflow and the air path is much more straightforward, because it goes in, goes right up and into the bin, just like the previous Dirt Devil Breeze, which was a very, very important aspect of that machine, and part of the reason why it cleans so well, because not only did it have good suction, but the airflow was very good because the air path was so short, almost in a similar vein to an Auric. This machine restores that. So now you actually have a machine that has a good amount of suction and actually keeps it while you're vacuuming carpets. Unlike a lot of the other Dirt Devils, where you have a hose that goes all the way down, and then it goes all the way up to the wand, and then back down into the bin again, when you have something like that, a lot of the airflow will actually die off as you use the machine, which means there's less airflow and suction to pull more dirt out of the carpet. Hi, Rika. Rika. Ruby, why are you slapping the Dyson? Okay. Seems like I'm getting interrupted. Another reason why this cleans better than every recent Dirt Devil is we're finally back to, again, a brush roller that reminds me a lot of the F1 Dirt Devil Breeze. We've got a brush roll with nice, stiff bristles and a lot of resistance on the carpet. This does a fantastic job at deep cleaning, and it's, again, the best cleaning Dirt Devil that I've seen in literal years. Rika. And it can also vacuum. Okay, it can't vacuum your cat. Hi. You keep interrupting my review. No. 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 No, don't jump up on my lap. I'm doing a video. No. No. Ma'am. I'm trying to do a professional video showing people the new Dirt Devil. And you keep interrupting me. No. Rika. One other thing that's been improved with this machine is they've updated the gasket on the bottom of the base plate to be a more modern felt style gasket versus the standard squeegee that is often prevalent on other machines. Now, unfortunately, because this machine doesn't have a proper brush roller shutoff, its biggest downside is the fact that it is not really capable of effectively cleaning bare floors, at least not in a way that is akin to what I'd recommend. Now, this machine is capable of picking up on bare floors. It can pick up cat litter, it can pick up pet hair, it can pick up a decent amount of debris on bare floors if it's adjusted correctly. But because it's a spinning brush and a very aggressive spinning brush, I would not recommend using this at all on your bare floors. In a pinch, it'll definitely do the job, but if you have delicate floors, and especially if you live in a place where you track in a lot of sand, your floors are going to get scratched, and it's not something you really want to deal with. Now, one other aspect that's a bit of a negative with this machine is the fact that it uses a special custom tool fitting, which is quite annoying because it means that when you're using the tools, it means that you aren't able to adjust this to just about anything. So when I push this button right here and pull off the hose, we actually have a decent amount of hose. But as you can see, it's its own custom fitting. And I've gone through a lot of my attachments. Remember, I have 200 vacuums. I've gone through a lot of my attachments to try to find attachments that fit this, and I haven't really found much yet. There's some newer Hoover attachments that fit this, which makes sense because Hoover and Dirt Devil are owned by the same company. So you may have some luck getting some Hoover attachments to fit this, but not all of them. And even though Hoover attachments are often 1.25 inches, because this fits over the attachment, it means that a lot of 1.25 inch attachments are not going to fit this, even with the extension wand. Which, by the way, the extension wand, while it is here, it is quite short. It's not exactly much of an extension. I mean, by definition, it is an extension, but it's not a very long one. So it's not super helpful, but it does clamp right to the front. Now this hose, as you can see, you've got this little clip right here, which you can leave the hose in, and that helps keep the vacuum from tipping over. But if you're trying to do something like clean stairs, you can pull it out of this hook. And speaking of stairs, this machine, whenever you have it parked at the bottom of the stairs, which is the only way to use it, you can comfortably get up to about 9 or 10 steps, depending on how large your staircase is. So if you have a 12-step staircase, you can comfortably clean all of your steps. It's just you'll have to clean the top 2 steps with the vacuum at the top of the steps, which is certainly possible. And even though this doesn't have as much reach as the Bissell Clean View that I just recently reviewed, because this has the added advantage of not having the airflow die off that that machine has, I actually prefer this machine to that machine when it comes to using it on stairs and also on carpets. But I still prefer the Bissell in some ways because the attachment fitting is a little bit better, and the attachments that it comes with I feel are just a little bit more useful. But on the topic of attachments for this machine, it does have some okay ones. So once we put this hose back in, we can clip this to both of these clips. I know a lot of people don't bother putting these up, but that is what you're supposed to do. Now, one interesting thing about this machine is it has an extra slot for what appears to be an upholstery tool, but it was not included in the box, and I haven't seen any such advertising, nor are there any other tools that I'm aware of available for this tool fitting. So, not sure what this is here for. Maybe there will be an upgraded model soon with a separate attachment. Who knows? But what this does come with is it comes with the extension wand that I just showed you, and it also comes with this combination crevice tool and dusting brush. This tool is terrible. It's very akin to what you would find to a lot of previous Dirt Devils, and it's not great. You can remove this brush entirely so it doesn't get in the way of the crevice tool, but otherwise it just kind of gets in the way, and it's not a very good dusting brush. It is an improvement over the previous combo tool that Dirt Devils have had, because one of the things I complained about with the previous combo tools is that these brushes were angled incorrectly and they are way too stiff. Thankfully, that has been addressed on this machine, so they have improved this. Although, especially considering the fact that there's 2 pegs on this machine, I would much rather have had a separate crevice tool and a separate dusting brush, because if they're not going to put an upholstery tool here, I would rather have them simply have a separate dusting brush that's not part of the crevice tool and just have that dusting brush sit right here. So I'd like to see that in an updated version, because if you're going to have a slot for a tool, you might as well use it. So while this crevice tool is fine, the dusting brush does take a bit of a hit because of its size. So it would be nice if there was a full-size dusting brush, at least available separately, because there'd be nothing stopping you from adding it to this machine, because it has an extra peg for it. But in the meantime, this dusting brush does okay. It's better than anything Dirt Devil has come out with in recently. In fact, this is probably the best that we've ever seen on a modern Dirt Devil. It does the trick. So again, it's pretty darn good. It's just a huge improvement over what previously was had on Dirt Devils, but again, it could be better. I know I said it was terrible, but you know, to be honest, it is much better than what the previous version was. I just wish that we had separate attachments, since clearly the machine is capable of it. But they do what they're intended to do. That was a lot of do. This crevice tool gets into crevices, and this dusting brush is soft enough to actually do some dusting. Although if you want to use this as an upholstery brush, it is too soft for that, which is good, because if it's going to do one or the other, I'd rather it be for dusting. Because for upholstery and pet hair, you're designed to use this turbo brush. Now this turbo brush is, again, much like in the vein of the combo tool, the best turbo brush that we've seen on Dirt Devils in years. Because the previous Dirt Devil turbo brushes that I reviewed were literally unusable, because they literally had claws that stuck out that prevented this thing from making contact to anything. It was a terrible design. And thankfully they updated this a little bit. This is literally just a Hoover turbo brush with this own custom fitting. And again, like I said before, I'm not a fan of the custom fitting, but that's not the point. This is designed really funny, almost backwards. There's this weird like scoop on the front, and then on the inside there's these grooves. This like completely flat piece should obviously be on the back of the tool, but for some reason it's on the front. So that does make using this a little bit awkward. Instead of pushing it forward, you have to essentially grab it, put it in front of what you're trying to vacuum, and then pull back. Like if there's hair right here, you put it like this and pull back, which does work, but it is quite loud and rattly, much like a lot of other cheap turbo brushes, but it does work. It's not the best, but it's far from the worst, and it's definitely better than the Bissells that are available now. Now, when you compare it to the older Bissell turbo brushes, those are much better than this, but the ones you can currently buy, This one is better than those, and it's identical to the Hoover equivalent of this exact same turbo brush. So, for what you'd expect in this price range, it'll do the job. It's certainly not the worst, but it's certainly not the best. And you can pop it apart with 2 screws in case something gets jammed in this turbine or you need to clean it out. So, no complaints there, and it sits right on the top of the machine. Pretty okay. Now, we'll briefly touch on the carpet height adjustment. There's 4 positions right here, and you switch it depending on the type of carpet that you have. One thing I do notice is that the medium setting is raised up a little bit for my specific carpeting. I find that on my carpet, it tends to kind of lose contact a little bit on medium, but then when it's on low, it's really hard to push on my rug. So trying to find the sweet spot for both my rug and my main carpet is a little annoying, and having to switch between the two is a bit of an inconvenience, but it's something you can definitely live with. When I used this at my place of work on the low pile setting, it did an excellent job and never really lost contact, but that was also a really low pile commercial carpeting. Now, on the subject of that, we do have some filters, and because I use this in an environment that's really dust heavy, it was a really good torture test for this machine. So I can show you how dirty this thing is after just cleaning a few square feet of a shop carpet. And right here, you press this big red button. In fact, you're probably going to push this on accident because I find this doesn't travel very much. So when I'm carrying the machine, I find that a lot of times I'll bump this and the entire machine will fall off, which is kind of weird because Dyson solved that problem like 20 years ago, but nevertheless, it can be a problem. So when you're carrying this machine, which with what is intended to be the carrying handle, hold it down here, do not hold it up here, or else you will push the button and this will fall off and you'll drop the vacuum onto your foot. And that's not exactly the most pleasant experience. So you've got some diagrams right here showing you how to access the filter, and don't worry, I will do a separate video on this machine on how to maintain all of the filters in depth, so be sure to look for that video if you have one of these. But as a real Cliff Notes version, you push this red button right here to empty the canister, you pull this little black tab up to get to the filter, and this filter twists right out. It's quite dirty, so I'm not going to do it right now. And yes, there is dirt that made it through the cyclone, so the cyclone is not very effective. Again, comparing it to a Dyson, these holes are way too big and they let way too much stuff through. But the actual filtration is okay. As you can see, there is a good amount of dust that actually got past the filter and went its way into the motor. So that's not great, but in this machine's defense, it was a lot of dust and there isn't too much of it. So as long as you don't completely overload this machine, you can get by, but keep in mind, it's an unsealed bagless budget machine, so filtration is not going to be its strong suit. It's about on par with everything else in this price range. As you can see, there's a little bit of dust on this post-motor filter, which for some reason you have to install this manually when you buy the machine brand new, so keep that in mind. If you don't have this and you already threw away your box, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to get any post-filtration. So I don't know why Dirt Devil couldn't just have this installed out of the box, but for some reason they didn't. But this pops out and you can wash it. Although since it usually fills with carbon dust, I'd recommend replacing this about every 2 years. Whereas this filter up in the top, I'd recommend washing that about every month, depending on your usage. In my case, I used it for quite a bit of dust, so I'm going to wash it as soon as I finish this video. So that is that. One last complaint I have about this machine, but it's fairly typical, the cord is way too short. It's only 25 feet, and for the $130, I would have liked to see 30, but at the $100, it's a little bit more acceptable. But you can use an extension cord with this, but the company doesn't recommend that you do because a lot of extension cords aren't rated for the right amount of voltage and wattage, so be sure to check that before you use any extension cords. Chances are, most of the ones with a grounded prong should be okay, so if you need more reach, you might have to do that. So, with that said, of course I can't comment on longevity because this is a brand new machine, but I did mention the build quality as a positive because it definitely points in the right direction. So the conclusion is that this is the best Dirt Devil that they have made in years, and TTI should definitely be proud of the improvements they made to this machine. And despite TTI also coming out with a brand new Hoover just a few short months ago, I don't recommend that machine because it had a major flaw where the machine would lean forward and burn your carpets. This machine thankfully does not have that flaw. So if you're trying to decide between a $100 Bissell or a $100 Hoover from Walmart, pick this machine over the Hoover, unless you're getting the previous generation Hoover Elite Rewind Plus. That I would still recommend over all of these machines that I just mentioned, including the CleanView, because that one's the best $100 machine that you can get. But if you're trying to decide between this Dirt Devil or the Hoover High Performance Swivel, even though this machine doesn't have a swivel, I still think this is the better choice because it doesn't have that design flaw with the brush roll. So, this Dirt Devil, does it reach my recommended list? So anyways, while this machine isn't quite, it's kind of somewhere in the middle. It's definitely the Dirt Devil I'm going to recommend if your heart is set on a Dirt Devil. If you've decided, I don't care what vacuum I want, but it has to be brand new and it has to be a Dirt Devil, then this is your answer right here. The only reason why I might not pick this is if you need a brush roll shutoff and you need a machine that can do bare floors. In that case, the Razor will still be a better pick. And overall, if you're going to spend the $130 on this machine, then definitely don't buy it, because you can get the Sanitaire SL4110A or the Bissell Big Green Commercial Power Force Pro BGU1451T for the exact same price. And both of those machines have been on my recommended list for literal years, and I definitely recommend those machines over this because they're just better in every way. But if you're wanting a bagless machine and you're wanting one for about $100 and you're wanting to get it from Walmart, then this is an okay choice. It's a solid choice. You can definitely do a lot worse, and there are definitely a lot of other machines that I would definitely pick this over. So I still think that you're probably better off just getting a Bissell Power Force Helix Turbo for a couple bucks less, but this is still a solid choice. Now again, TTI is not the best in terms of after-sales support, and they're not the best by any stretch of the imagination for honoring their warranties. So if you buy one of these, buy it on Walmart's let me rephrase that. So make sure you have your credit card signed up to your Walmart account. So that way, when you buy this machine with your card, you have it digitally archived on your Walmart account. Because if you try to do it with the way TTI recommends it, where you get a physical receipt, that's going to fade by the time you try to make a warranty claim, and TTI is going to attempt to scam you out of actually collecting on your warranty if something does go wrong. So as long as you either do that with Walmart or you buy this direct from Dirt Devil to whenever they have a deal that it is $100 normally, so that way it's on your Dirt Devil account, then you should be okay. That way you have the digital backup of your purchase in case something goes wrong. Because one of the advantages of this machine is it actually has a 2-year warranty. Most Dirt Devil machines are usually about 1. But remember, if you don't have any evidence of buying this, then you're not going to be able to collect on your warranty. So keep that in mind. Definitely keep that in mind, because that could be a deciding factor if a longer warranty is something you value, which to me that's definitely pretty nice. So anyways, this is Intellitech Studio signing out with my newly recommended Dirt Devil multi-surface total pet. Again, it's not perfect. There are other machines that I'd recommend just spending a couple more dollars on to get instead, but this is a solid choice for $100. But again, don't buy it for $130. Only consider this for $100, and it's a pretty darn decent deal. Again, it has its flaws. Custom tool fitting, not a fan. No brush roll shutoff, and the filtration and cord length could be a bit better, but for this price, you really can't complain. The performance is excellent, and if you're a fan of the previous generation Dirt Devil Breeze with the big F1 filter in the middle, and you didn't like what Dirt Devil put out, and you've been holding onto that machine, and you've been waiting for a nice, good budget Dirt Devil that's built well, then here is your upgrade. I'm not even kidding. This is definitely one to consider if you're in that boat. Anyways, this is Intellitech Studios signing out. Let me know your thoughts on the Dirt Devil multi-surface total pet in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you all have a good one. Peace. I will link this machine in the description, and a maintenance guide is coming very soon for those of you who are wanting to know how to take care of this machine.